Hey everyone, I'm Scott King, and that is Chris Kraus. Hey Kraus, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good, good. Hey, thanks everyone for joining this episode of the Union Podcast. We're going to talk about McKinsey's latest report. We're going to do another book report. This one is the State of AI in 2023. This is the generative AI's breakout year, right? This is when everybody at least had a couple of months to see it. People have actually started to use this, and McKinsey was nice enough to survey 1,600 people and do a really, really nice report. We obviously link it in the show notes so you can take a look. But Chris, just first off, what we both reviewed the report. We've got some notes here. We're going to talk about five different points. What's your general takeaway from what McKinsey told us?
So actually, if you skip to the middle of the report, they talked about that in 2022. So the survey was looking at some of the questions. What did you do in 2022? So it's not what have you done this year? It's what did you do last year that you can measure? And that people are actually taking actions there. And the neat thing was the people who are actually doing stuff, they're literally doing stuff. Like we've talked about, AI must do something. You need to solve a problem, augment business, be more successful. They're not using it for what people are afraid of. It's I'm going to lose my job to AI. I mean, there's American Airlines is picketing now. They're worried about AI taking over their jobs. And it's these people aren't finding that that's where the value is. It's actually augmenting people, augmenting processes. So I think that's what's really exciting. They're actually using AI to accomplish things and augment their business and make more money and be more successful.
Yeah, it was. I found the same thing. It was really interesting how they actually broke it down, right? I think there was a sub segment, I can almost say that, of respondents that said, what they're doing with it or kind of the ROI that they're realizing. But about half of the people said that they call them AI high performers in the report.
Mm-hmm.
I think they said that they're actually innovating. They're earning more money for their companies using AI.
Yes.
Versus, the other side of the fence, the other half that respond, 90% of the people that answered this question said, well, we're just looking at saving some money. So it's a huge disparity, although it's a small group. But I think what we find, especially with our customers, they're actually doing something more with the same workforce and the same people versus looking at cost reductions.
Yeah, this is very different value prop than outsourcing for cheap labor or RPA to take over human tasks and eliminate humans. This is business transformation. This isn't cost reduction workflows. And so that's what's really neat. So the fear of AI taking over a job shouldn't be there. This research is proving that. Those other things never really did a good job of that. But this is definitely about business transformation and being more successful and making more money. I mean, when we're referencing EBIT, that's earnings before. That's a cool thing, right?
Yeah. So that we're talking about chart. Does this chart have a name, like a figure?
It's on page 9.
It's on page 9. So smaller shares of AI high performers see cost reductions as their top objective for generative AI efforts. Well, just generative AI efforts, but the high performers, they see the cost reduction as a smaller portion of what they're trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. So, I'll take a snapshot and put that in there. But I thought that was one of the biggest takeaways. It's what more can you do versus save money? Because I think when we buy IT stuff and when we develop applications, how can we do this less expensively other than digital native, right? So digital native, they build more products. I would like to see this chart broken down by industry and to really understand who answered this way. Because if you go back up to the industry chart, and I'm scrolling through this, it is, they call it advanced industries is a segment. Business, legal, professional is one. Consumer goods and retail, energy, financial services, healthcare, and technology, media, and telecom. I mean, obviously, the the industries with more data going back and forth. These are your consumer goods, right? When everybody has an account and a login, utilities, telecoms, thing like that. I think those are the ones that are going to be able to do more with current resources than, let's say, energy, right? So they'll probably look at cost savings things. I'm just guessing,
Yeah.
but I would like them to combine these two charts to figure out like who really answered that way.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what else do we have here? So the people that are doing something, of all the respondents that said, yeah, I'm actually using this, I mean, they cite the same concerns as everybody else, right? The inaccuracy and cybersecurity, right? I mean, those are the two big main concerns. Depending on how they're deploying the technology, right? You obviously can't put your IP in the ChatGPT website, right? Because then they own it. What did you find about the concerns?
Yeah, so the third one was the IP. So the fact they could have looked at some law firms, I can see that there. But then, they're using it all the time. But quite honestly, those are things that actually can be overcome. Like cybersecurity, it's like in the modern world, we know how to write services that are secured. We know how to do two-factor authentication. We know how to encrypt our data at rest. Like we have SOC 2 compliancy. We know how to solve cybersecurity. Granted, 15 years ago, we'd use the term crunching outside, soft on the inside. But now people have gotten good rigor on that. There's layers of security all across your hardware, your operating systems, your networks, your applications. So cybersecurity, can cite it, but really we know how to solve for that, right? That's a well-known thing. And accuracy is one that's very interesting because that is specific to maybe making a prediction, like calculating a number, categorizing something, like when someone gets an email in support, is this a return or is this a request on the status of something, right? So there's inaccuracies. Are we predicting the right numbers? Are we predicting our categories? Or say with generative AI, is it actually doing what it's supposed to do and create a well thought out sentence and a well thought out paragraph? And if it doesn't have the answer, filling it in with nonsense. We're calling it hallucinations now, so that the sentence structure is well formed and the paragraph reads correctly. Because that's the goal of generative AI, is you want to get well written sentences and well thought out paragraphs. So it's kind of augmenting and filling in spaces. We're now calling that hallucination, but it's something very natural that it's supposed to do. And of course, we've talked about this before. We take a different approach. We say, let's go let Krista or our software go find the right answers and then ask the engine to do the summarization of the right answers so that it gives you the right information. We're not looking at them to LLMs to actually go look across the internet to find the answer. The answers to the questions are usually in enterprise. They're in your FAQs, they're in your SharePoints, maybe they're in your systems of record. They're your customers' orders, your customers' returns, your customer statuses. So, we figured out a novel way to solve that no one else is doing right now.
Yeah, that's the rise of the prompt engineer, right? So it's like, how do I correctly prompt the LLM to generate a good response? Well, you give it the actual data, right? I mean, you give it the answer. And then John posted a blog on this, and then we're going to do a future podcast on it. But yeah, like people cite the inaccuracy. Oh, this thing, it went haywire. Well, it's just trying to tell a story. It's trying to, complete a thought, which is sometimes hard for us to do on this podcast, right? But just give it the actual data, right? Connect it to the real systems. It's then you solve your cybersecurity problem. You solve your inaccuracy problems. You solve your regulatory and compliance problems and explain. I mean, you go down the list of these risks that these people are stating that they're working on. You got to have a system and a platform to do this for you. You can't just hire the problem away.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting you mentioned prompt engineering, and that's actually something that internally we are outrageously fascinated with, because I come old school. I'm like, well, SQL had rules, select from, order by, group by, sum. Like you just applied rules to how the data would join or Cartesian product and things like that. prompt engineering is more art, right? Because the prompts that we build into the product, say when we're doing stuff around compliance, when we prompt engines, we will use one type of prompt for ChatGPT 3.5, one for 4, one for Watson AI, because we figured out there's an art along with the science in how you prompt to get the right answers and get the results you're looking for. So that's just a whole, we'll have to do a blog on that. It's fascinating that it's actually more art than science right now, but it's super cool. And we love providing that as part of Krista for our customers.
Yeah, so when we do the podcast, the software, does the machine translation, right? And transcription. But the prompt that I'm using to actually clean it up, I mean, it's like this long.
Oh, yeah. Tell
right?
them what it is exactly, Scott. You know what it is.
I mean, it's
when
like
Chris Kraus says,
yeah, if you say the world, or if you think about, it takes all that out, right? Because it's learned.
Yeah. So Scott has learned to prompt engineer my safety words.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to what this says. So of all the people, the respondents that said that they've tried this at least once, what are they doing with this? Right. So, surprising. What did I write here? I'm looking at my notes.
So 40% of tech, media, telecom respondents regularly used it, followed by financial services. So the people who are using it are actually using it.
Yeah.
It was shocking. Like we were both like, wow, that's actually like, people are actually doing it, they're using it quite a bit. And so that means they're definitely getting value of it, which could align to why they say 20% of their EBITDA is up or contributed to that. So because the people who are adopting it are actually using it in earnest. This isn't some fluff because it's a hype curve or something. They're actually getting value out of it.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to my point earlier, the tech, media, telecom, financial services. There's a lot of data going back and forth. Obviously, those have got to be the guys that have figured out the 20% increase in earnings by using AI. That's just incredible. So if you're listening and you're one of those guys, we'd love to hear from you because
especially because they were talking about that like for the generative AI in 2022. So that means people are actually doing this and measuring it.
Oh, yeah,
this isn't like I thought about it last week. It's super cool.
This is in use. The analysts that I talk to, they always say, "Oh, we want to hear about production uses." I'm like, "There's production uses everywhere, right? I mean, this is not vaporware. This is people are really doing this." All right, so the 3 most commonly reported use cases. I'm not really sure what page. Oh, this is on page 4 of the report. Marketing, obvious. Like, I mean, you're generating content, right, from a prompt. The marketing use cases, you can actually use the internet trained models, right? I mean, you're just regurgitating what people have already said. Although they write crazy. There's all kind of passive tense and positive phrases. It sounds like it's not very good. You have to edit every single thing. But product development, what is that about, Chris? So product development,
so
what kind of products?
So people are actually talking about like low code development. Can you actually generate like a JavaScript, or can it generate HTML to do something, or can it generate, say, Java code or a class or Python? And I've used this. It's like, write me a JavaScript to do this, or write me a regex inside of a JavaScript to accomplish Y. So I mean, which makes sense. You can do that because there's very specific rules and design patterns in development and coding. And there's examples of those on the internet. There's examples of those in forums. So it makes sense that it can learn by observing the way people have explained how to do something. That's something the engines can do. And a lot of people see this as co-pilots. It can read your code and say there's a known security flaw here, or they can help complete your code. Maybe you're creating a memory leak, which I don't know if you really do anymore. Well, it's not like the old C days with Malik and Dialog.
No, my memory leaks, but it's a completely different issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And then service operations, obviously that's such a sweet spot for us. Like we have customers who are saying we want chatbots that actually can answer a question, not just point to an FAQ and make you frustrated. We want to triage your emails. I had a customer who said, well, what if we get faxes? I was like, well, it's really the same thing as getting an email. We just turn it into text, and it's just, paragraphs, just like paragraphs of an email will determine the intent, will determine the sentiment of the person, extract specific data, and then reply back and answer. And maybe the reply back is to, send them an email with the response, or maybe reply back with a fax. It's still automation, right? It's just that how are you getting to that get information and replying.
So someone asked you about faxes. Are you making that up?
No. Of course, it was like,
of course, they wouldn't expect a fast response time if they're faxing something, right?
Well, some things, the Library of Congress still controls that certain things have to be done in fax and banks and hospitals and, HIPAA compliance. You have to fax things versus email them.
Yeah, if you're in the CIA or a hacker, right? You're faxing stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So service operations. Yeah, that's one of the best places to start, because in your service organization, it's your newest, least trained employees, right? You can just have a machine learning model that's answer all those questions. And you don't, and then have the employees do more valuable stuff, right? Because everyone, the complicated issues, everyone loves to talk to a person, but they want to talk to a knowledgeable person. So just get the easy stuff out of the way. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting because in that very first thing we talked about is reduction of people versus actually accomplishing a task. And quite honestly, every time I go through this ROI with a customer, I'm like, do you actually answer every inbound email you get every day? It's like, no. It's like we could quadruple our number of people and we'll still be behind. So if AI can actually handle 75% of that, there's still enough work of the important things that are complex for people to handle. So they're seeing it as we actually get our work accomplished during the day, and it's complementing people. So it's not, what they were feared of with RPA and, outsourcing. It's literally complementing so you can focus on the good stuff.
Yeah. It did talk about the workforces and how people will shift. It's really good to see that the report and the respondents said that, they'll reskill workers, they'll have them do something else or more, more valuable, because if they can have software or generative AI do those tasks, right? I mean, they're actually removing, if software can do it and a person's doing it, they're already doing a robot's job, right?
Yeah.
So just have the robot do it and then move that person to something, more attuned to, human ingenuity and thinking about more complex problems, right? So it was really cool to see that everybody is, they're not going to shrink the workforce. They'll reskill and reposition everybody. I was really encouraged by that because as you mentioned earlier, that's everyone's big concern. Like, oh my God, it's going to take my job. Like, well, you not really, right? I mean, we haven't really seen that. Yeah. All right. So Chris, anything else in here before we wrap up? Anything else that you want to point out?
No, I mean, other than I wonder, it's like when I read this, I was like, the middle was the interesting part and I would have organized it differently. So now I'm wondering, it's like, did they use AI to help write this?
Of course they did. Of course they did. Why wouldn't they? Although they didn't use AI to make all the charts. The McKinsey, whoever does all the charts and all the visualizations at McKinsey, I mean, they're amazing. The McKinsey website is amazing. So if you guys don't frequent this website, you should.
Yes.
All right. So thanks, Chris. That's all I have for this episode of The Union and the review of this McKinsey report. I encourage everyone to download it and give it a read, and look forward to the updates next year. Thanks, everybody.
Later.